Faith and doubt. Shraddha, faith in the Guru, faith in the efficacy of spiritual practices, is a qualification which every aspirant on the spiritual path must have. For the great majority of the sadhaks, this faith is centered in the jnana murti, the physical aspect of the Guru. But this confidence must not be mistaken for what is called blind faith. For blind faith is a belief based on the conviction of other people, such as parents, teachers, and friends. And it comes with the resolve not to abandon it, even if it does not tally with actual facts, or the blind faith is against sound reasoning. Nor can it be founded only on reasoning through the process of the intellect. For Buddhi, the intelligence is the creator of our whole mental world and its creations. And this is based on delusion and are liable to break down like a house built without a strong foundation. The faith which comes through direct perception, direct experience, is no doubt the real one, but of course far beyond the reach of the everyday sadhak. The faith we have in the Guru, in Mataji, has for most of us begun with some intuitive experience, revealing to us the supernatural in her. This experience is usually the starting point, the seed of the tree of faith. In some cases, this first experience is so overwhelming that it immediately gives a firm intuitive conviction against which the doubting processes of the mind are quite powerless. For others, this experience, although having given a strong impulse to the mind, has not silenced the doubting processes nor the critical attitude. For a third category of aspirants, the first contact with Mataji has nothing spectacular, but simply awakens the interest in further inquiry. For such persons, it takes a very long time, sometimes years, until their faith matures. Nevertheless, it penetrates and permeates the mind slowly but steadily. In fact, whatever the approach, there are three elements that must combine so that the average sadhak may be established in Shraddha. The first and most important one is the intuitive experience. No matter what be its nature and intensity, it is based on the recognition of our real nature, reflected through Mataji's physical aspect. Generally, it is momentary, as a twinkling of an eye, and cannot be expressed on the discursive level of the mind. Sometimes it may even be forgotten. But as its source lies in the eternal, it can never be wiped out and remains very powerful in the subconscious depths. The second element is supplied by our emotional nature, which tries to translate the inexpressible and unique experience into terms of our experiences of the past. This is why the intuition of the real gives rise to the attachment we have for Mataji as mother and guru. Thirdly, the discursive mind furnishes the cementing element in this building up of our faith, for we can finally accept only what is reasonable, has been thoroughly thought out, and is not contrary to what we have heard and learnt from the wise elders and through direct experience. Everything in the manifested universe moves under the sway of the pairs of opposites and the three gunas, the qualities of nature. In other words, the growth of faith, Shraddha, is subject to fluctuation, depending on one of the three gunas which predominate at one particular time. That is why doubt, the opposite of faith, will arise automatically and test whether our faith is built on unshakable foundations. If it is not, it must break down. But if it is genuine, it will stand storms and trials and emerge ever stronger. When our mind delights in sattva, in harmony, in peace, doubt has no access, for everything is then clear and self-evident. Doubt comes only while we are under the influence of some emotional or restless rajasic impulse in the mind, or our understanding is clouded by the stupor of tamas. An old diary written in the 1950s, after I had my first darshan of Mataji, gave me the idea to write now. That diary was written with the spontaneity with which one converses with one's own self, when one can be certain that nobody else will read what they have written. I have now translated some of the quotations and remain true to the original as much as possible as I write below. I feel it may serve as an illustration among thousands of how our faith in Mataji awakens, has to pass through severe storms and cross fires of doubt, and finally emerges victorious. 10th February, 1951. This diary has been interrupted for over a fortnight. I take it up again at Patna. What happened to me on the 2nd February is far more interesting than anything I may have written about before. I was coming from Calcutta, intending to pass through Benares hurriedly, to stay a few days at Sarnath, and then, if I had time, to visit Rishikesh, or else leave straight via Kankhal for Colombo in Sri Lanka, from where I had to sail back to Europe on 21st February. But my guide took me to the Sri Anandamayi ashram. It is a wonderful sight right on the banks of the Ganga. And 10 minutes later, Sri Anandamayi Ma appeared at the door of her room. She speaks in Bengali and Hindi. I could understand her only with the help of an interpreter. She was standing at the entrance of her room. I can still see her focusing her eyes on me with that gaze I have come to know so well now, that seemed to embrace my whole destiny. At about 9:30, the kirtan was over, and Mataji said that she could give me a private interview immediately. I was supposed to ask some questions, but as a matter of fact, I had nothing to ask. I only wished to make a spiritual contact. It appears as if Mataji had divined my thoughts. She herself asked the questions. They were clear-cut and precise, and it seemed as if she had guessed what I wanted to know. The interview took about 20 minutes. I went back to Clark's Hotel in a strange state and began to understand what this wonderful being had infused into me. It was divine love, a love from which now on would bind me by indestructible ties, the love one has for the Guru. But I was afraid that this feeling would not last. Mataji had to leave for Vindhyachal, then Patna. I had asked her permission to accompany her. As noted in this case, the initial experience was very powerful and the intellectual doubting process was therefore silenced. But doubt is bound to raise its head sooner or later. 25th July, Benares, 1951. Sometimes a terrible doubt gets the better of me. This immense love, is it really so different from the love one feels for a woman? Of course, there is not room for any unclear ideas. It is an absolutely pure love, and yet it is still personal and limited. Nevertheless, it is something as a perfume emanating from its bottle. It seems to pervade all of my being and merges into the quest for the absolute. How far I have deviated from firm resolutions of my earlier life, which had until now been the main principles of my behavior. Absolute freedom in oneself, to be one's own refuge, one's own law. This freedom I have lost. I have become the disciple of the most wonderful of all gurus, but a disciple all the same. Sometimes a longing for the mountains gets a hold of me again, and I feel like going to a solitary place in the Himalayas and concentrate my mind on the pure absolute to the exclusion of everything else. But at other moments, the certainty of being on the right path is so conclusive that no question can arise. All the same, these are all states of mind, and I have decided to write them down so as to become clear about myself. And that writing was a good example of faith and doubt alternating according to the fluctuations of the gunas. When sattva prevails, there is evidence of being on the right path, and questions seem absurd. When Raja gets the upper hand, the ego raises its hood and laments at its lost freedom. When tamaguna dominates, one doubts the degree of purity of one's love for the Guru. Bhagalpur, 29th July, 1951. My love and veneration for Mataji are so great that I should like her to be like a perfect diamond that may be examined through a magnifying glass from every angle, without one's being able to detect the minutest flaw. But who am I that I dare to judge this giant of spirituality? Only a Jivan Mukta is able to judge a Jivan Mukta. And alas, I am very far from that. And why would a Jivan Mukta even judge another Jivan Mukta? One day when I was under a spell or doubt, Mataji said in reply to someone else's question, because I myself had not expressed doubt nor asked a question, that it was impossible for the Shisha, the disciple, to judge his guru, just as a student is not able to judge the learning of his professor. I feel sure that she is right. Hazrabad, 1st August 1951. Sometimes the Guru, to test how far we have progressed, brings about circumstances that shake the mind violently down to its foundation. When I came to India, I was following the Buddhist Theravadan path, which lays much stress on self-reliance and does not admit the necessity of a guru. I am beginning to think that the whole of this inner tempest has been willed and created by her. Like the great magician that she certainly is, the ego has such subtle devices for winning back the command that has been snatched from it. Only the Guru can release one from the clutches of the ferocious tiger, which the sense of I-ness is. Benares, 13th August, 1951. I have written to my friend, and my resolve to go away becomes more and more firm. In fact, I am like a pilgrim in the mountains, suddenly enveloped by heavy mist. I do not know anymore whether I am in the right and whether I may not be pushed down into a precipice. This path is indeed as perilous as a razor's edge. Doubt is a terrible thing. It has raged in me for about 3 weeks, a very long time. If I cannot regain confidence, it will be better for me to go away. The crisis is not completely over. In fact, what exactly is the matter? Some incidences frequently repeated make me doubt whether Mataji really is what I believed her to be, namely my guru, someone eager, more eager than one's own heart. Alas, where have fled the complete surrender, the absolute faith which possessed me only just 1 month ago, so that I can feel nearer to my own heart? The crisis of doubt has entirely disappeared as if by magic, without any special event happening. For in reality, there is something which, when it occurs, and it occurs quite frequently, does not leave any room for doubt or argument. It has the unquestionable evidence of things experienced by direct perception. What I speak about here is difficult to describe, but is in fact undefinable. 25th August. The gunas have changed. Sattva has chased away Tama, and with it all its mists and obscurations. But on 22nd October 1951, from Vijayachal, again doubt assails me. This rope in which I had full confidence, with the help of which I was going to try to cross over the abyss, I shall test its strength. I shall pull and see whether it breaks, and if it does break, I shall have escaped from the great danger. If the tie that binds me to Mataji is the one which links guru and disciple, then it is indestructible and will resist all attacks, storms, and cyclones, for one cannot be separated from one's own self. When doubt appears, it signifies a downfall, a descent to the plane of discursive thinking. If I ever keep my consciousness in the present, doubt will not be able to arise. Rajguru, December 1951. I just read what I wrote 2 months ago. I could have written it today, for it exactly pictures the state of mind at this moment. All this is very difficult to understand. I am moving as a blind man, stumbling in the dark, even in danger to fall down. Whenever it seems to me that the tension is so great that I shall have to leave Mataji, it somehow is put right again, as if by magic. This shows the change of the guna which rules the mind for a certain period of time and modifies the mind completely. Quite different aspects of the personality come to the surface at every change. Mataji's love, is it not pure divine grace and nothing but that? This grace is a rare thing to obtain. One cannot gather it like a fruit from a tree. One has to become worthy of it. Once it has been received, one has to learn how to hold it, to sustain it, and watch over it like a precious jewel. For it can be easily lost and may be stolen by the demon of doubt in an unguarded moment. A mere glance back towards worldliness makes it fly like a frightened bird.